Hi everyone, welcome back for your third video. We are going to delve a little bit more into the 1970s here, starting by talking about Watergate. So I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, I am going to, here we go. See if we can get this to work. Let's try stopping it and starting it again. There we go. All right, some technical difficulties. We're all bearing with each other, right? All right, so we are going to start here with the Watergate scandal. Like I said, I'm going to minimize myself. All right. So in June of 1972, we see a major political and government scandal occur, and this is the Watergate scandal. So in the early 1970s, Nixon's White House is implicated in a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. They were headquartered in the Watergate Hotel and Office Complex. That is this building that you see here. It was located in Washington, D.C., and this scandal eventually led to the resignation of President Nixon in August of 1974. So what exactly is this scandal? Well, it was an attempt by Nixon to cover up his involvement in the illegal actions during his re-election campaign in 1972. He was running for president again, and 5 of his supporters broke into the DNC headquarters in order to steal information. Well, when this happened, it was discovered, and right from the start, Nixon and the White House as a whole denied that they had had any involvement in this. But as an investigation occurred, slowly over time, it became very clear that they had had a role in the break-in. A man, special counsel to the president, named John Dean, ended up revealing Nixon's role in the scandal to the United States Congress, to the people. And in July of 1974, so just weeks before he resigned, at that point, we see the Supreme Court order Nixon to release a number of taped conversations that he had. He released some tapes, but not full tapes. He had deleted parts of them, or only sent recordings, partial recordings of them, as it became more and more clear that he was likely going to be impeached by Congress. Nixon instead chose to resign. He chose to resign the office of the presidency. Normally, I show you a movie at this point. It's called Frost Nixon, and it takes place a few years after Nixon resigns the presidency, based on a true story about interviews that were done between a man named David Frost and former President Richard Nixon. There are 4 interviews. They really did happen. You can really watch them. And it is all about the making of those interviews and how Frost is able to, during that point, get a confession out of Nixon that he had truly had a very large role in this break-in at the DNC headquarters. So it's an excellent movie if you have the chance. It is also on Amazon Prime, but I do not believe it is on there for free either. But definitely worth looking into if you are interested. Then in September of 1972, the Olympic Games were occurring in Munich, and terrorists took hostage. They killed 2 Israelis and all told 9 Israeli hostages. A major firefight ensued. All 9 hostages were killed along with the 5 terrorists. So the full death toll at the Olympic Games in Munich in the fall of 1972 was 11 victims. 11 Israelis were killed during this hostage and terrorist situation. The Summer Olympics that year ran from August 26th until September 11th. And this event, which took place almost just after the middle of the Olympic Games, from September 5th through September 6th was known as the Munich Massacre, and it is a major act of violence when these terrorists slaughter, they murder these Israeli athletes. At the start of 1973, officially on January 1st, 1973, the European Common Market, it expanded for the first time. So remember, it had started off as the European Coal and Steel Community, the ECSC, and then later on it expands to become the EEC, also known as the Common Market, the CM, and it expands in 1973 to become a little bit larger. It includes at this point Denmark, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. And this is a step closer to it officially becoming the EU, the European Union, what we know it as today. Then in 1973, the Supreme Court officially made abortion legal across the United States, made it a federal issue instead of allowing each state to make its own states' rights decision on this, said that this was a federal right that women have, that it was not something that states could take away. It made it a federal law that abortion is legal. Overturning Roe v. Wade would not make abortion automatically illegal. It, however, would make it become a states' rights issue, making it incredibly difficult for women to have access to healthy, to correctly done procedures for abortion. I think it's important for all of us to remember here that people who want to get an abortion are going to find a way to get an abortion. There is a very large conversation to be had, one that I wish we could have in person, about the economic inequities in gaining access to an abortion. People with money find a way to get abortion, whether they live in a state or a country that says it is illegal or not. And that is something very important to think about as this conversation is being had, when it was being had in 1973 and it being had again today in 2020. But this landmark decision is made in 1973 and again made it a federal law that access to abortion is protected federally. Then in 1973, Skylab, America's first space station, was launched. It orbited the Earth for only 6 years, from 1973 to 1979, at which point it fell back to the Earth. It was planned to fall back to the Earth. It didn't just happen. They knew that was going to happen. A lot of worldwide media attention to this occurrence. Then in March, on March 29th, 1973, the last American left Vietnam. The Vietnam War was the longest and most unpopular foreign war in U.S. history up to that point. Obviously, that is no longer the case. The Afghanistan War has far exceeded, it's more than doubled the length of the Vietnam War now. It cost 58,000 American lives, and an estimated 2 million Vietnamese soldiers and civilians were killed during the Vietnam War. 2 years after the United States Army left Vietnam, the North Vietnamese Army overran the South Vietnamese people and their army and officially claimed victory in the war. However, the end of the Vietnam War did not bring an immediate halt of bloodshed and chaos in the region. We see that continue for quite a long time, much of it occurring in the Cambodian genocide that we will talk more about in the next video. And finally, our last topic for this video, in September of 1973, we see a major coup occur in Chile. The CIA led a military coup against a socialist president, a man named Salvador Allende. This coup put a dictator in place, but he was a pro-democratic dictator. So the United States CIA was happy to have him in power as opposed to a socialist, a communist. And it is estimated that during his 16-year reign, this pro-democratic dictator, Pinochet, executed between 1,200 and 3,200 people. interned, jailed as many as 80,000 of them, and tortured tens of thousands of others. This coup was led in September of 1973. Pinochet officially took power in 1974. The number of executions and forced disappearances during the time of his 16-year reign, so from 1974 until 1990, is estimated to be just over 3,000 people. Your assignment to go along with this video is a worksheet that asks you to a little more closely examine what Pinochet's rule did, what his the devastation that his power caused, and to take a little bit of a closer look at that, as well as some song lyrics that shed a little bit more light on what he did. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know.